Patagonia have a reputation for making responsible, technical outdoor clothing of the highest quality. You probably know who they are, and we're really excited to have them on board for Autumn/Winter 2/4 in our current range. Actually, we're really stoked about it. In particular, the M10 collection, which is new for Autumn/Winter 2/4. Now, M10 is a highly technical alpine collection from Patagonia, and we're going to talk you through it today in both men's and women's because we have a wide collection that covers everyone for all of your alpine needs. M10 was designed from the ground up with athlete and ambassador input to create a minimalist collection of movement first alpine pieces for those fast and light alpine scents. With that in mind, the M10 collection is split into 4 main parts. We've got the Storm jacket, available in both men's and women's. We've got the men's M10 Storm pants. In the women's, we have the M10 Storm bibs, so they've got a slightly different construction for the women. And then we've also got something a little bit different, a little bit more special compared to the rest of the collection, which is the M10 Anarak, which is also why my friend is here, which I'll explain a little bit more later. We'll start with the M10 Storm shell, available in both men's and women's, which is arguably the most traditional of the M10 collection. So it's a lightweight, slim-fitting, alpine-focused hard shell with a PFC and PFAS-free construction, both in the DWR and in all of the fabrics. As I say, it's available in both men's and women's with their respective fits. I'm in a size large here. The M10 is made with 30 denier recycled, 100% recycled nylon Econil fabric, and it's using the Patagonia H2No standard for its waterproof shell. I will explain that a little bit further because that can tend to confuse some people, because H2No isn't actually strictly a type of membrane. It's a testing standard that Patagonia put all of their hard shells through, and it has to meet a certain threshold for Patagonia to certify it as H2No. We'll also pop a link up here to some of their testing because it can be quite interesting. So the Storm jacket and the whole M10 family as it stands are made in fair trade certified factories. That's something that Patagonia feel is very important, and it gives them a little bit more control of the factories that they work with. And the way that this works is they pay a premium to these factories, and then that extra money is used by an elected committee of the employees in a fair trade certified factory, and they decide how that extra money is spent and where it goes to promote worker health, other CSR goals. But it basically means that Patagonia have a little bit more input and reliance in how those factories produce their goods. So what are the features of the M10 jacket? So these features apply to both the men's and women's. They've got exactly the same feature set. Starting at the top, the adjustable helmet compatible hood allows for cinching around the head, keeping the heat in, and also for a precise fit around beanie hats, mid layers. If you're not using that helmet, you have 3 points of adjustment to cinch it to make it head compatible. Also in the hood, you get a built-in Reco reflector, which increases your safety tenfold by making you more searchable to rescuers in worst case scenarios, without the need for power or manual activation and without adding weight or bulk to the product. It's nice to know that you've got it there. Hopefully you never need it, but it is there, and that's something that's in all of the M10 collection as well. So every piece has a Reco reflector built in. Moving down, you've got a 2-way main zip, which makes it for easy on and off, and allows you to unzip from the bottom, which is great if you need to answer the call of nature or for around a climbing harness. So if you're not climbing in this shell, but you're just throwing it on afterwards because the weather's changed, you have the opportunity to open it up over a harness, which is a really nice add-on and something that I feel is essential for a climbing jacket. In terms of the cut, the jacket sits close to the body and provides enough room for mid layers. So I've got just a lightweight fleece mid layer on, but I would have more room underneath this for something a little bit bulkier if I needed to. But you get room around the shoulders for increased movement, and you get very little hem rise when reaching up overhead with this jacket as well, which is a really nice thing. So Patagonia have really thought about the cut with this jacket in terms of it being a climbing piece. You get 2 zippered pockets on the chest to provide easy access to small essentials like snacks, energy gels and gloves, and they're nicely out of the way of your harness, so they're not going to interfere with anything there. Overall, the M10 Storm Shell is a lightweight protective package for taking on your next alpine climbing adventure. We also see it as a good choice for those fast-paced mountain activities where a lighter weight, more pared back shell is the order of the day. Moving on to the M10 legwear, this is where we do see a split between the men's and women's. So I've got the men's M10 Storm pants on, and then in the women's you've got the M10 Storm bibs. So there is a little bit of a split there for a few different reasons, but the M10 men's Storm pants that I've got on here are essentially a slim fit jogger almost, because they've got an elasticated waist and elasticated cuffs on the bottom, but they've been cut in such a way that the freedom of movement that you get in them is honestly pretty spectacular. Like the freedom of movement I get here, moving around in these, is something that I've never been able to experience in shell trousers before. And that's partly due to athlete and ambassador feedback. They've really worked on these pants to encourage movement. Both the M10 bibs and the M10 Storm pants use the same 30 denier recycled Econil nylon fabric. They've got a slightly different slick backer on these on the inside of the membrane, but otherwise essentially they use the same waterproof technology and fabrics as the M10 Storm jacket. Now with the M10 Storm trousers that I've got here, they are pared back in terms of features, so they are completely harness compatible. So the one pocket that you get on the thigh just here is well out of the way of your harness, so you'll still be able to access it, use it when you're climbing, but honestly, probably wouldn't use that pocket too much unless it was for stashing a pair of gloves or something. Anything essential, like I've got my phone in there today, probably wouldn't be in there because it would just get in the way a little bit. But you have that one pocket, stripped back on features. You get elasticated cuffs on the bottom. You do have little tie-ins as well, so you can tie them around, and it's quite nice from a point of being able to spot your feet. So if I was climbing in a set of stickies or in my B2 boots, I would be able to spot my feet quite nicely without that extra bulk. These are the sort of pants that you're probably going to be throwing on at the start of the day and keeping on, and they do honestly feel a little bit like wearing nothing at all. Swapping over to the M10 bibs, they've got a little bit more inspiration from cycling bibs, hence the name bibs. So they've got an elasticated bib upper, which is a little bit more comfortable, and they're a little bit more traditional in their styling for a waterproof over trouser. So you've got reinforced kick plates on them on the bottom, you've got tie-ins as well. They are big boot compatible, so they are compatible with mountaineering boots because you've got an adjustable gusset on the bottom. And they also have a thigh pocket, and they've also got a little stash pocket on the front of the bib as well for something like an emergency transponder or something small that you just need tucked out of the way. But both of them meet that H2No standard as well, and they're just lightweight, comfortable bibs that are movement first. One thing I will mention is that on the men's M10 pants, they do have a 31-inch inseam in them, which honestly for me is a little bit on the short side. So if I am reaching up, stepping out, it does tend to ride up a little bit. That's not going to be a problem for most people, but it is just something to mention. If you do have quite long legs, you may notice that these do ride up a little bit, but being that jogger style, they're still super comfortable, and I'd still be happy to climb in these, especially if I was in bigger boots. That cuff rise isn't really going to be an issue, and I can just tuck them into my boots if I need to, or elasticate over the top, and they should just be about right. But something to mention if you do have quite long legs. Now, there's a reason we saved the M10 Anarak for last, and I did mention there was also a specific reason why my friend was wearing it rather than me. Because of the time that we're filming this video, we're using production spec samples that have been provided to us in a size medium. This one is a size large that we've got from our own stock today, but the medium here, whilst I can technically get in it, he's a little bit more alpine fit than me and fits the medium a little bit better, so we're going to use him today rather than me, which explains that. Now, apart from being an Anarak, which is an obvious difference to a full length zip that we've got here, the M10 Anarak is a little bit more special compared to the rest of the collection. They use a different membrane and different outer fabrics to achieve a slightly different result with this, and it's also in a slightly more alpine fit than the rest, just by being an Anarak, so it tapers down a little bit more. But the special sauce with this is the difference in the membrane and the outer fabric, which we'll go into a little bit more now. So just like the rest of the M10 collection, the Anarak is made in a fair trade certified factory, and the fabrics are also Blue Sign approved. But they drop to a 20 denier recycled nylon in this particular jacket, and they switch over to an X-Pore membrane, which is a nanoporous membrane that is designed to breathe passively, which is a little bit different to the way that a normal membrane works, which relies on a temperature or pressure differential to breathe. So the passive breathability that we get here is something that's really key when you're in an alpine climbing shell, because it's likely that you're either going to be static when you're belaying, or you're going to throw that shell on and it's going to stay on for the majority of the day. So something that breathes passively is a real big advantage. And again, dropping down to 20 denier, this is designed for super fast and light alpine adventures. You're not really going to notice the size of it in your bag. It will stuff down into its own pocket. This obviously doesn't look that small. However, if it's in your bag, not much bigger than a can of Coke for your hard shell if you're not carrying it, if you're not wearing it. If you need to carry it, it will stuff down. It's super small and light, and you get a little hang loop there. And when you take it out, you can just deploy. You're getting excited? You are. A little bit windy today, so hopefully he doesn't fall over. He's not very steady on his feet. But you can get your Anarak out just like that. So the features on the M10 Anarak are slightly different to some of the other collection, but there's also a lot of similarities. So you still get that helmet compatible hood with Reco reflector technology built in. It's adjustable, but you only get a single point of adjustment on this hood, which cinches around the crown, but it does sit quite nicely around a helmet in particular. You get a slightly higher coverage with the full length zip, just so it sits a little bit higher and get a little bit more of a guard on it. But that zip is two-way, so you can open from the bottom to ventilate. I also appreciate just how deep this zip is, and that's a really nice feature. You get that one gated chest pocket that is also the one that it stuffs into for when you need it for any essentials, things like that, but this is a little bit more pared back than the others. You also get a little hem adjuster on the bottom there to pull and cinch in, keep things nice and tight, and that will sit nicely under a harness, so it's nice and low bulk, and you don't have any pockets or anything further down here, so that it's nice and out of the way of the harness as well there. The only other thing to mention in terms of features is to do with the cut of this particular jacket, and as I mentioned before, it is very much in that alpine fit, so it does taper down, it is quite slim. He can't actually lift his arms up without some assistance, and they don't really go up overhead, but having tried on one of these in a large as well, very similar in terms of reaching up overhead. The paneling and articulation that they've incorporated into the jacket is really rather spectacular, and get very minimal hem rise, very similar to the M10 Storm jacket as well. They've really thought about this in terms of its cut for alpine climbing. Hopefully that gives you a little rundown of the Patagonia M10 collection. We'll pop a link down in the description for you to shop the entire collection and the full range of Patagonia. As always, if you have any questions about M10 or anything Patagonia, pop them down below and we'll get back to you. All this talk of alpine climbing has got me fancying an alpine trip. Anyone fancy coming? I'll bring the jelly babies.